Washington is a beautiful, ugly city, a city of great ambitions and failed spaces. This fountain, dedicated to the African-American man of science, Benjamin Banneker, is marooned in the joyless and oppressive L'Enfant Plaza. Symbolically, it may belong here. Banneker was a surveyor who helped lay out the original lines of the District of Columbia, and it was Pierre L'Enfant who laid out the city's streets and avenues. But nobody spends time here, at least not willingly. L'Enfant's plan for Washington is one of the subjects treated in author Sarah Luria's new book about Washington. Capital Speculations is about how ideas are made real in the physical landscape of the city. Speculation in real estate and politics is all about making a big bet in expectation of a huge payoff. And that was the point of Washington, a grand plan for a city laid out on a muddy swamp, a gamble, really, that America and Washington would survive and thrive and grow to rival Europe. One idea Luria explores is about the meaning of our sometimes chaotic maze of streets and avenues. Pierre L'Enfant laid out a grid of streets, and over that he placed a latticework of wide avenues, connecting important buildings in elegant squares and circles. But what does that mean? And how does that plan feel to people today? Is it a humble, simple grid like a village, onto which overbearing federal avenues impose their power? Or do the avenues liberate us from the dull, conformist pattern of our streets? Luria says the whole idea was to keep both answers in the public mind. The plan, she writes, stresses movement, flow, energy, and diversity to create a space where the citizen might feel both liberated and controlled. In Rock Creek Cemetery, there's an enigmatic and elegant grave marker that suggests another paradox Luria explores in her book. It was erected by Henry Adams, author, critic, great-grandson of one president, and grandson of another. It marks the spot where Adams' wife, and then Adams himself, was buried. It isn't on the agenda of most tourists, but those who know it love it. Eleanor Roosevelt is said to have visited it to escape the burdens of being First Lady. Luria sees evidence in the grave's remote place, its lack of any name or other identifying feature, of Adams' personal habit of hiding in plain sight. In life, as in death, he wanted to be an insider on the outside, which Luria argues explains a lot about his house, which once stood where this landmark hotel, opposite the White House, is now. Adams, like many Washingtonians, wanted a good view of the action, but he also wanted privacy. He lived in a vast stone cave, surrounded by friends and Washington's intellectual elite, but he had largely despaired of directly influencing the politics of his day, and he preferred to watch the theater of politics rather than play a role in it. Luria calls Adams someone who wanted to be prominently reclusive. It is a habit other Washingtonians share. Drive the streets at night, and you see a city of open windows, the homes of people who want to show the world, in a controlled way, a bit of their luxurious domesticity. This house belonged to Frederick Douglass. His career, in a way, was all about placing his domesticity on view, argues Luria. As an educated black man living in Washington after the Civil War, he believed the world should see the bourgeois normality of black Americans. His own houses reflected that, with large windows and interiors decorated with paintings of prominent abolitionists, hung as if they were his own ancestors. Property offered a second skin, the very means by which Douglass's race could challenge any meaning ascribed to their first skin, writes Luria. This small outbuilding behind the main house, the author writes, shows how much Douglass wanted to confound traditional views of race. It was here, in this humble structure, reminiscent of a slave cabin, that he did much of his thinking, reading, and writing. Luria argues that Douglass, who was biracial, made his home estate a biracial place, a space that constantly confounded people who, rudely, wanted to know if he was really black or white, and where he got his immense erudition. Through the floor-length windows of Douglass's house, you have one of the best views of Washington. From here you can see the Capitol, the Washington Monument, the National Cathedral. Douglass's dream for Black America didn't quite come true the way he might have hoped. His house is now surrounded by one of the poorer neighborhoods of the city. Luria's book is one of the best new books about Washington in a long time. She doesn't deal with many of the problems that obsess Washingtonians: traffic, gentrification, downtown development, or the public schools. But her book reminds us that the people who made this city tried to create a city that would reflect their ideals. Often they failed, but none of this happened by accident. Washington has always been like a map of America in all of its promise and failure.